Welcome to the Tales of Brittlebone Post, our first listener mailbag. My name is Chance Sinclair, and this episode is a giant thank you to you, the listeners. This episode will address some of the most popular questions and corrections, provide some updates of things that have been going on in the town, and for the first time, we will hear a few listener tales of first-hand accounts of strange happenings in Brittlebone. My apologies that I cannot get to every message and story I've received. There's just not enough time, and just know that some of the most popular questions I've got will be answered in the coming episodes, so please don't be disappointed if your question or comment isn't covered here. If you are a new listener just tuning in, please know this is a serialized program, so it is important that you start at episode 1 and listen to each episode in order so you're all caught up on the things we'll be talking about here and in the show moving forward. If you're a listener who's all caught up, you heard back in episode 7 that I issued an invitation to a killer, saying that if anyone knew details about the Barker family case being a double murder, specifically if a listener out there was involved in that double murder, to reach out and say hey. Well, a killer hasn't reached out to claim their kills just yet, but some of the new information shared in this episode will help shed some light into the dark corners of our mysteries. And some of what we cover makes the shadows cast by the legends of Brittlebone even darker. First, some corrections. In episode 2, I said Forbes, Travel Channel, and MarthaStewart.com all ranked Ohio as the third most haunted state in the country, but that's not true. Travel Channel ranks Ohio as the fourth most haunted state in the country. My notes were wrong, but Ohio is still ranked third by Forbes and Martha Stewart, so clearly the true experts in ghosts have spoken. Also, in episode 2, I stated 8 police officers witnessed a UFO event in Trumbull County, Ohio in 1994. We heard a portion of these dispatch calls. 8 may have been inaccurate, however. Some sources say as few as 4 police officers bore witness to the phenomena, and other sources say that over 10 whole police departments and up to 50 officers were involved. The exact number of witnesses remains undetermined. Next correction. Paragorman writes that it's irresponsible to say that the Ohio Howl is the most famous Bigfoot audio ever captured, when so much audio evidence continues to be captured and released around the world that bioacoustic engineers cannot designate as belonging to any known living creature walking this earth. So I did want to apologize if my comment was haphazard and made out of inexpertise in this realm. I want to encourage all listeners, go listen to some Bigfoot and educate yourselves. Frail Plinko points out that in episode 6, I said at one point, quote, "staircase on the woods in fire," which is me messing up words. And Becky G has noted a few times that I keep saying Susan Barker pulled the trigger of the gun that killed her and her husband, when actually, a trigger is squeezed, not pulled. My bad, y'all. Vision Country asks, are you going to cover Nathaniel Shear? In episode 3, it was noted that the community park in Brittlebone is named after him, but he was not mentioned again as something that the show would cover. This is a great question. I did look into Nathaniel Shear. I actually looked into all historical figures that have played a big role in the town's history. Honestly, most of it was pretty dry, except by having a park named after him. Shear isn't really tied to Brittlebone too strongly from what I can find. Nathaniel Shear was a business mogul who Brittlebone, one of the many towns that he loaned a ton of money to help develop parts of the city. Of course, the man ran in questionable circles and employed questionable tactics. Unfortunately, it's not really the material we're looking to cover on this show, as old rich men being unethical in their business practices is not exactly what we call strange phenomena in this land. And now, our first listener story, which is all about strange phenomena. For the first time, you are going to hear firsthand about the lived experience of alleged strange happenings from the heart of the Wayward Circle. The following audio is clipped from my conversation with an old neighbor who reached out after she'd been notified by a family member that her timpani drum lawn decorations had been mentioned on the show. A huge thank you to Dawn for speaking with me, and this conversation has been edited for time.
Well, my niece told me that she heard this podcast and she mentioned something about my timpani drums. So I just wanted to reach out because you mentioned my beautiful timpani drums. I do take very much pride in them. The base of them is filled with rocks. And then I put probably, 100 pounds of soil over the sides of the. I change them up every once in a while. Sometimes I like them to have the pink done, the red, white, and blue to make, if it's going to be around the 4th of July, I'll plant them and I'll have my red, white, and blue in them. But, yeah, I've lived in Wayward Court for quite some time. I've lived there since I was 8 years old. It was actually my grandmother's house. She was the first owner. She bought it when the cul-de-sac was put here and all the houses were brand new except for the old gray one that you talk about. That house was already here. So my house has always been in the family. The first strange experience that I had was actually with my grandmother. She was very sick, very ill. We knew she was going to pass at any time. And of course, all the cousins came up, everything. So all of the parents and the aunts, uncles, everyone was, of course, in the house, and just, they were basically saying their goodbyes to grandma and everything. And of course, us kids, being as young as we are, we don't really comprehend death or anything. So we were out back playing, and it was about dusk, and I don't even remember what we were playing, but I remember that the back door opened up, used to make a specific creaking noise, so we figured we were getting yelled at or something, we were being too loud or something like this. And I'm standing there with all my cousins and my grandmother. It was kind of I can't explain it. It was her, but it wasn't her. I don't want to say apparition because she looked too real. She walked right out the back door and just disappeared. And I turned to my older cousin. All of us were looking to her. She was 3 years older than the rest of us. And she just looked at us and said, "Don't you ever tell anyone what we all just saw." And we haven't spoken about it since. I mean, not often, but every once in a while, things would shut off and on, or things would get moved around. I came home one day and my chair it wasn't facing the TV, it was facing straight into the wall, and Stoney couldn't have done that. That's my dog. He's a little Chihuahua in a fat suit. He's Stone Cold Steve Dogston. He's got a lot of life in him, but he's not big enough to move the chair around. Here's a good one for you. I put up a camera a while back to keep an eye on the dog because I just want to make sure that he's all right now that I live alone. But it started just shutting off on its own. I thought maybe it was faulty, so I bought a different one, same thing. That one would shut off on its own as well. So I put up one of the cameras to watch the other camera, maybe see if I could catch, a ghost or something, shutting off. Sure thing, both of them shut off all at once. They didn't catch anything doing it either. It's not my grandmother. She was gone when she walked out that back door. I mean, it's something, and I don't get any evil feelings from it. I don't get any, positive feelings from it either. There really are no feelings to it at all. It's just things, happening. All I know is it does not want to be on camera.
Thank you again to Dawn and her niece for sharing a glimpse of how strange life can get down in the cul-de-sac. But I've learned from our next listener story that it doesn't require living in the Wayward Circle to experience something that sticks with you forever. Sometimes all it takes is one night. A huge thank you to Morgan for sharing this next listener story.
So I have a story. I actually went down to hang out with one of my friends who lived in one of those houses in the cul-de-sac. Her name was Amber, and her brother Austin both lived there. And yeah, I went to go spend the weekend. This was in the middle of the summer, and it's me, Amber, her little brother Austin, and her parents, her mom and her dad, Jim and Kelly. That being said, you walk in, and on the right, they're kind of like in a line. There was one room, and when Austin stayed in the first room on the left. Sorry, it's on the left. On the first room on the left. And then the second room was Amber and I's room. We were just sharing a bed in there. And then the third room was Jim and Kelly's room. So each of us have like a tiny little room that's about, oh my God, like 10 by like 5, like I don't even know like measurements, but basically enough to like fit a small bed, and that's basically it. These rooms don't even have doors, mind you. They are curtain rods on each of the doors, and the curtains, you just close them when you want to close the door, right? If you like need to change or go to sleep at night, whatever. So all this to say, finally it hits about like, I don't know, 11-ish p.m. and we're all pretty pooped. So we're like, okay, we're going to bed. So we go to bed. I'm in the room, and kind of the way that Amber and I are sleeping is like in our tiny little cubby of a room, like so tiny. I'm talking like she's on the left side of the bed. I'm on the right. The left side of the bed is against like the wall, and there's like a tiny little window as if you were like in a basement, right? Like at the top of the room. And I'm on the right side of the bed, and right kind of next to like where the quote unquote door, where the curtain is. So we close the curtain as we sleep, obviously, because, it just feels like you're in a closed room. And something about me is I've dealt with like sleep paralysis my whole life. The crazy part about all of this, that's a keynote just to like note, because I at first thought this was a sleep paralysis episode. But anyway, we go to sleep. I was tossed and turned a little, but I was like, whatever. But something felt a little weird. I was like, something is like kind of off. I couldn't really fall asleep, and I'm not really one to like toss and turn, but I was like, After probably like 30 minutes, I fell asleep. And I don't know how long I'm asleep. I'm just laying there. At some point, I start to hear some people talking in the kitchen quietly. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, oh, maybe they're Jim and Kelly are up getting some water, or maybe Austin is chatting with someone. And, but I like kind of just keep my eyes closed because I was like, I'm sleeping. My alarm didn't go off yet. You know what I mean? And I hear like a little conversation happening between two people. And soon after that, I open my eyes because I'm almost positive I heard him say Morgan, if I'm remembering correctly. I definitely journaled about this, but I'm pretty sure he said my name. So I hear Morgan and I open my eyes and I was like, oh, Austin's standing there, like smiling at me, like trying to like get me to come out. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's mumbling something to me. He's like, oh, saying something. And I couldn't really tell what he was saying. I was like, what? And I was like, maybe just in my like, I don't know, sleepy stupor. I was like, maybe my ears just aren't awake yet. But like, what? And I literally was like, I opened my eyes. And I was like, I spoke to him. I was like, hi. And then he like started talking. And I was like, what? And I sat up and I was like, what? And after I sat up and I'm looking at him and said that, I slowly realized that the curtain has not been opened. And I watched the smiling face of this man who I thought was Austin disappear, but right before my eyes. And it wasn't just his face, like it was his whole, body, right? And I watched him just disappear. And I like rubbed my eyes. I was like, what the And I was like, Austin? I said his name. I was like, Austin? Austin. It's silent. And then I was like, okay. And then like Amber's kind of like moves around. And I was like, and that was sleep paralysis. And yep. And that's what that was. Because I was like, I'm not going to go back to sleep if I don't convince myself right the fuck now that was my sleeping disorder. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep. I had thought the curtain was open and everything. It wasn't. And I was like, how the hell did that face, like, could my eyes have been tricked? And I just kind of stared at it for a second. I was like, could you see a face like in that naturally, like from some type of shadows? And for the life of me, I was like, no, that was not like, it was his clear smiling face, teeth and all, like eyes, like speaking to me. I'm like, I'm not crazy. Whatever. So it took me this time it took me a second to fall back to sleep. And I was like, it's fine. It's not real. And that was really weird because usually I don't actually speak back, like let alone I don't open my eyes to hearing them like talking. I mean, I did when I was like 5 years old. If it was a sleep paralysis episode, I would hear voices and maybe open my eyes and see people, but never was I so convinced that was reality that I like sat up and started speaking to them, Anyway, I fell back asleep after like somehow I convinced myself so hard. I was like, yep. And that was on my head. And I fell back asleep and soon enough, my alarm goes off, I hit it. I'm like, okay, I'm still feeling freaked and tweaked, okay, about what had just happened. And my alarm goes off and then Amber's goes off, and we get up and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't say anything to anyone because I was so scared I didn't even want to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things it's a little too real. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll tell them about it like in a few days. And I was like, yeah, something like really crazy happened, right? And we kind of like link up in like the kitchen. And we're like, all right. And then Austin is like, comes up to me. He's like, Morgan. He's like, were you, can I ask you like a weird question? And I was like, and I immediately, in that moment, I knew what he was about to say. Like, it was like one of those things where I was like, oh my God, I know what he's about to say right now. And I went, oh my God, I started screaming. I was like, no. Because he was like, because I started screaming as he said, so like about like at like 2 something in the morning, he's like, I saw you walking back and forth in my room. He said he saw my full form hair. He's like, I saw your curly hair. He's like, and I saw your feet. Like I saw your whole body. And you were like walking around in my room. And I was like, no way. No. He's like, she like disappeared. And I was like, you need to stop right now. I was like, is this a prank? Are you pranking me right? Like, was that you? And I was like, you need to be so serious with me right now. This is not funny. And he was like, wait, was what me? And he was being like so serious. Oh, and I was like, oh my God, Austin, I saw you. I saw you in my room and you like woke me up and you were smiling at me. I'm like, what the and I was like, I did not get up from that bed. I was scared to get up from that bed. I was glued to that bed, especially after that happened. And then so we kind of like hashed it out and we were like, wait, when did it happen? When did it happen? So basically we had like the same exact experience where I saw him. And here I thought when he was like, oh my God, did you like see, a man? He saw me. Now to think that there would be a ghost or some, paranormal being that would show up to you as your friend is one thing. But another one that takes on your form to go mess with your other friend, that was like a whole nother level of feeling like absolutely terrified. Like it felt like I know it wasn't me, right? I know that was not me. So why the did you see me pacing back and forth in your room at 2 a.m, right? And we both started freaking out. I had chills up and down my spine. I was shaking. I literally had never had such a guttural like scream come out of me. And I just like was like kind of like a childlike like wail scream. Like I couldn't really control it. I was so spooked. And it wasn't just like, oh no, I'm scared for my life. It wasn't that type of scary. It was like it was creeping in my bones scary. Like I literally started like shaking and like screaming. And I just thought that was absolutely crazy that both of us had experienced this thing. And when I actually drew the lines back, I was like, oh my God, there was like 2 of them convening in the kitchen, like talking. And I heard them like giggling, like I heard giggles. It was like a lighthearted, like hee little thing happening in the house, like it was like, I'm pretty sure I was just absolutely pranked by 2 of these, You can blame whatever you want, I guess, but sleep paralysis. But I think it was something wholly different than anything I'd really experienced before. And the fact that I interacted with that, presence, and they were smiling at me, that part too, like just a beaming smile. I don't know if you want them to look angry, but the smile seems a little sinister, It was one of those things where I like wanted to remember every detail because of how insane it was, but I also wanted to forget it because of how freaky it was. Amber was just like, nope. She just doesn't believe anything, so she was like, nope. And then it's kind of just mine and Austin's thing. We're like, remember that time? And he's still haunted by it as well. He's like, I still think of that, and it freaks me out to my core. Like we were both just absolutely terrorized, and I felt so. I just never been so aware of my helplessness as like a human, and so aware of like how darkness is and what can really hide in it without you ever really knowing.
I couldn't hear Morgan's story of 2 people experiencing something so outside the bounds of the ordinary down in the cul-de-sac of Wayward Court without thinking of the suggestion of folie à deux, the madness for 2 that we touched on in the Barker case. To be clear, our listener story does not qualify as folie à deux, as there's no isolation that led to the experience, nor behavior amongst the experiencers that was really out of the ordinary. It was a single night sleepover in a family's house, and both experiencers were pretty thoroughly weirded out, which would qualify as an ordinary reaction to such an event. The reason Folie à Deux popped into mind is because I had just received another message from a listener, Abby, about an alleged paranormal angle of this psychiatric condition. Abby writes in claiming that cases of Folie à Deux, the madness for two, can often come interwoven and confused with alleged manifestations of doppelgangers. A doppelganger, for those unfamiliar, is an evil copy of a person. This mirror imaging is said to come with dark, otherworldly connections, and it's said doom will swiftly come for anyone who encounters their own doppelganger. Please again keep in mind this is a paranormal spin on Folie à Deux, not a clinical one. But Abby insists that this duplication, this madness for two, is not limited to human beings. Objects can be duplicated in areas of high strangeness. For example, you find your favorite watch sitting on your dresser when you're already wearing your favorite watch on your wrist. A copy has appeared without explanation. You're now the proud new owner of two identical favorite watches. This phenomena actually has a few different names, and I found numerous cases logged across paranormal blogs and message boards online. It's called unexplained duplication phenomena or glitch replication theory, as in a glitch in the Matrix. Sometimes this unexplained replication of an object happens with something as mundane as a pair of socks, and in those cases, maybe that person just forgot that they had another pair of the same socks, right? Well, other times, this phenomena is said to occur with something as precious and unique as a family heirloom passed down through generations, one-of-a-kind belongings, and sometimes it happens with something as precious and unique as, in the case of doppelgangers, human beings. Abby's message asks me, you said that things are known to move around and rearrange themselves in the Wayward Circle, but have they ever duplicated? Because if they have, UDP, unexplained duplication phenomena, is a surefire sign of a thin place, a liminal space where our world is close to whatever's beyond our world, and things are liable to come through from the other side. For what it's worth, unless the two listeners are collaborating to give me the chills, when I talked to Morgan, she gave no indication that she was aware of anything like an unexplained duplication phenomena theory. And Abby, when she wrote me, would not have heard Morgan's story about a pair of creeping, smiling duplicates in the night. Rumpelstiltskin writes in about a strange story relayed to him by his father. Crumple writes, this story stuck with him because his father is not remotely interested in tales of the strange, but he had been thoroughly weirded out by this experience. Crumple writes that a few years back, his father told him that a man had come walking into the Derby bar, one of the bars of old downtown Brittlebone, nestled in between all the churches and brick. A bar that Rumpelstiltskin's dad was having a drink at when this man, who none of the regulars recognized, just came in, sat down at the bar, and when asked what he wanted to drink, he just stared back at the bartender with the blankest expression imaginable. The man looked to be about 40 to 50 years old and was dressed well, clean cut. Crumple's father said it wasn't like some crazy had stumbled into the bar and that the man did not appear to be drunk. When questioned further, the man could speak just fine, but he couldn't remember his name, how he'd got there, or where he'd come from. The man didn't know if he had a family, what he did for a living, or what he wanted to drink. He had no wallet, no keys, no phone. Not a shred of contact information. So, thinking maybe he had suffered a head injury, they asked him what was the last thing he remembered, and he said he couldn't remember. Crumple's dad said it was weird enough that a few of the regulars went outside to see if someone had dropped this man off, as the guy didn't appear to be joking, but there was no car, no bike, no mode of transportation or answer for his arrival. The only hint of an answer came from one of the old regulars who had been posted outside Derby Bar the whole time, chain smoking. When asked about the man, he said, "Who, that guy? He came from around the corner. Maybe he walked up the hill." The chain smoker nodded towards where he said the man had come from. The Derby Bar sits on Main Street on the last block of what is considered downtown Brittlebone. The corner that the mystery man is said to have come from is where a new street breaks off of Main Street. And that street is named Wayward Court. And around that corner, there is nowhere else to go other than down the hill into the Wayward Circle. Rumpelstiltskin writes that the incident had ended only a few minutes after the mystery man's arrival when, without explanation, the man just got up and walked out of the bar. Nobody tried to stop him. And when the chain smoker finally came back inside for another drink and the regulars asked him which way the mystery man had gone, he just shrugged. Before our final listener story, a few more questions. Listener Emily Greer writes in, I mentioned in episode 3 that a girl and her mom played Bloody Mary in the Wayward Circle and that her mom was hospitalized. Emily wants to know, how true is this story? And did I ever play Bloody Mary down there myself? To quickly recap, rumor had it back in the day that a girl who lived a couple houses over from me in the Wayward Circle, Sarah Crafton, was terrified of this urban legend, so her mom had played the game to prove to her that it was bogus. Sarah's mom had flipped the lights off in their bathroom with only a candle lit for lighting, and with Sarah watching, she said Bloody Mary's name 3 times into the mirror, and a horrible, pale white face had appeared. Her mother was so shocked, so horrified, that she instantly fell into a coma. In the aftermath, Sarah had to move away to live with her grandparents in Indiana because she refused to step foot back inside that house. The truth of this story is Sarah Crafton absolutely existed. She was a little bit older than me. I believe she was in high school when this happened. I was in 4th, maybe 5th grade, but her mother did suffer a medical emergency inside their house, and she did fall into a coma. To my understanding, There was, of course, nothing apart from rumors to suggest that the medical issue was caused by anything supernatural. While we can't vouch for what exactly happened inside the house, medically speaking, health-related emergencies occur frequently in our world without the aid of Bloody Mary lending a hand. But who knows? We've heard stories of things happening in that cul-de-sac, and we will hear more. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened to Sarah's mother, but I can verify that it's true Sarah did move away after the incident. Probably because she lived alone with her mom, and she wasn't going to continue living there alone with her mom in the hospital. So I would venture to say that moving to her grandparents, if that's where she went, seems like a natural course of action. And to answer the second part of your question, yes, I did play Bloody Mary by myself back when I lived in the Wayward Circle. Ultimately, I didn't see anything in the mirror but myself. But you know I had to do it because I had to know. Staying down in the Wayward Circle, Stephanie R. wrote in and got me thinking with one more hard-hitting question about my personal experience during the events of October 3rd, 2001, the day of the Barker deaths down in the cul-de-sac of Wayward Court. Stephanie asks, "What flavored Pop-Tart were you fixing?" Frosted chocolate fudge. Slick Temper asks, did I ever go to school with any kids that lived in the house at 816, since families were always moving in and out of there? I don't remember a single kid of any age living in that house. So sadly, we never got that inside scoop on what it was like living there. But now, finally, with our last listener story, we do have a live account of what it was like within the walls of the house at 816 Wayward Court, from none other than our star listener who sent in the video of the staircase in the woods, Heather. Thank you again to Heather for this one.
Okay, should I go?
I chose to start this project down in the Wayward Circle with the Barker family in that house and the staircase in the woods because these are the cases that inspired me to start this project, and they were the cases that were both physically and emotionally the closest to me. But on this scale of Brittlebone legends, we're talking about a long-solved domestic incident and a footnote of lore that I couldn't even find mentioned anywhere in all of the research that I've done on the town's odd histories. So my intention was to start small and to build up to the main event characters. And one of those characters is responsible for putting the town of Brittlebone on the map and the world of the weird, long before I started talking into this microphone about Pop-Tarts and burning refuse. Really, there's only one good way to prepare for setting boots on the ground in Ohio. One good way to prepare for facing off in person with the Driscoll Munitions Factory, the Crybaby Bridge of Brampton Road, and the Wayward Circle itself. And that's to dig right into the town's most famous piece of paranormal lore. So before we lift off and take flight, next episode begins our full exploration into the things said to be lurking in the shadows, existing on the edge of reality in my hometown. next episode, we begin our trilogy on the legend of the Brittlebone Beast.